call this meeting to order for January 22nd. Nice to see everybody here. Hope you all had a nice, healthy holiday. My family went down like dominoes, 1, 2, 3, just kept going like that. But we're all recuperated and ready to go and happy to be back at work, especially doing the work of the city. So the first call to order is, I know that you've all read them, the minutes of the workshop, correct? Yeah, so, but we would still like to know if you have any observations, any questions, any changes? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
I make a motion, we approve.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay, in that case, everyone in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. All right, the minutes are approved. The next is the really fun job for somebody like the office, the chairman, is to do election of officers. Go ahead, please, Ms. Barlow, take care of that for me.
All right, in your rules of procedure, it states that annually you must elect a chair and a vice chair. So we shall do that now. If there are any nominations, please nominate. We do not need a second. Do we have any nominations for chair?
Right? We're nominating you.
Can you do it again?
I would be happy to do it again.
Thank you. We
Okay,
nominate.
all in favor of nominating Sherry Donahue for chair, please say aye.
Aye.
I'll say aye.
Yes.
Any opposed? Nobody's opposed?
Thank you
Motion
for your
passes.
vote of confidence.
Who had the motion? Was that Letha?
That was me.
Okay, we will move on to nominations for vice chair. Do we have any nominations?
Well, Letha, you've been doing a great job. Would you like to keep the job?
I can do that.
I nominate Letha for the job.
Okay, and Letha, you accept? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Don't say anything.
Okay.
Motion carries. Thank you. All right then.
Okay, and we'll retain our same pay grade. Everyone know that, right? Yeah. 0, all right. So we do have quite a few things for discussion. First, we're going to introduce and welcome our 2 new members. First one is sitting here on the dais with us, Juan Carlos. So glad you could be here.
Thank you. Thrilled to be here.
And so what prompted you to want to belong to this
So
particular?
I've been living here since 2016, and I come from some communities where historic preservation has always been important. Miami Beach, San Juan, Old San Juan, New York City, and Buenos Aires. I've lived in these places where preservation and the fight for it is quite important to save the legacy and the architecture of these places. And when I moved here, I saw that there was a treasure of different architectural styles in our city. And it's been now 8 years since I've been living here full time. But last year, certain things that I saw happening with some properties prompted me to say, if I want to see change, I have to get involved and not just sit back. I have to come to the meetings, and I actually have to be a part of the process and at least try. And so that led me to then apply. And I'm very excited that I'm here, and hopefully that we can accomplish some excellent things this year, the year of the centennial. So,
Nice to hear all that. Thank you. Well,
thank
welcome.
you.
And then we have Janine. Janine, want to come to the podium and tell us a little bit about yourself as our second alternate?
I moved to Tampa in 1987, and I raised my family here, and I taught at USF for 25 years. And then I retired, and I was gone for 11 years, but I came back last year, and I think this is my final resting place. My background is anthropology. I've always been interested in historical things. And I really love Temple Terrace. Everybody in my family said, you must really love that little city because you went back. And so I'm glad to be here. and I want to give back to the community.
Well, we're happy to have you here.
Thank you.
We agree with you. We love our city.
It's great.
So I do have a question. Have the new members been afforded the same training that the rest of us had about the sunshine and all those things, or? how-
No, I think we'll have to schedule a little
I-
orientation.
I received all the documents pertaining to sunshine laws.
Okay,
And I also, from Mr. Hurlis, I received some other documents, and
okay.
this information I have.
So, do you have this?
That book, no.
Okay, we need to make sure that you have this, and
Okay.
you as well, Janine. Okay, all right. Yeah, there are some rules about being the alternate and as well as being a member, that if you are not at a meeting and then a vote comes up and you haven't been there, you really can't vote. So we really want y'all, thank you for being here, and we'd love to have you attend every meeting, because that way, if you're called upon to fill in, you'll be ready, okay? So whatever it needs, whatever we need to do to get both of them up to speed would be wonderful. Because how many meetings did we have just learning what we could and could not do? Yeah.
3 at least.
So, let's see. And before we get into it, I think we have actually, I don't see it on the agenda, but we actually look like we have a member of the public. Would you like to talk?
You're here.
And of course, we have our liaison, our own Mayor Ross is here too. We always give him the floor if he'd like it. But do you have anything you want to add or say, or nothing? Okay.
No, not really.
All right, that's
Good to be
okay.
here.
Well, just,
Thanks for the invite, and, yeah, I actually haven't been to one of these besides when I spoke one time, so.
okay, well,
Excited to listen.
well, and you were one of our presenters at the workshop, so, you know.
Would you mind putting your name on the record?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sure.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, Danny Moody.
Thank you.
Mayor Ross, have anything to say?
Good evening, board members, and welcome to the new board members. Thank you for your volunteerism, your willingness to serve. I don't have anything for you tonight, but I am here to say hello, and I'm certainly available to you if you have any questions that I can answer, if they're easy. I'm happy to share with you anything that might be on your mind, so
Yeah,
if you
thank
think
you.
of something, I'm happy to respond as best I can.
Very good.
So,
Thank you. We
thank
know
you.
you're always
Happy
at the
New Year.
ready. Okay, so we'll move on to item B, which is Corey Collins, who's here to tell us about, guess what she's here to talk about? She has a new uniform. Yes,
Centennial,
yes.
Centennial. Hi.
Very
I
exciting.
know everybody up here, so I didn't realize I knew all of you on this committee. Basically, Centennial, everybody knows, this is the Centennial. What we wanted to do is make sure that we invite all of you on this committee to be involved with the Centennial celebration. Marissa's been working very, very hard on the timeline, and that timeline will be going up at the rec center as a wall wrap. So they are finalizing that, and do they see that at all, or is that, no?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's going through the final review. It's very big and very detailed, and it's very awesome that she's been able to do that. And we'll also have a mobile one that will travel around at the different events throughout the year. Parks and Recreation is putting on basically an event every month, and obviously we tie the Centennial into it. Other groups, other clubs are doing events that are also tied to it. We're starting to get applications in for requests to use and to promote the Centennial. So if there's anything that you guys want to make suggestions for, the big event is River Jam on May 3rd, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. over at River Hills Park. You will be, probably you as the committee chair will give you the club row. We would love to have the Historic Preservation Board out there, along with the Historic Preservation Club. We'd like to get everybody involved out there, have a booth set up. The city will be providing the tent space, 10 by 10, and a table and chairs, so you don't have to worry about lugging a tent or anything like that. You just lug the stuff you want to show. So, anybody have any questions about centennial celebrations. We've got murals going up, got 2 on this wall right here. 2 big ones, one at Lightfoot, one at the Family Complex, and one at the fire station. That will actually start February 17th now. The one at the rec center is going to be the first one to start going up, the bats. And then
Really?
yep, just got that today. So, and then after that, it will be Amina Khan over at the community wall. So keep your eyes open for that one. That's a really, really neat wall. You can sign up and participate and throw a brush on that wall as well. So that'll be good.
So that's something that we probably should consider, how we could play a role, because we're so new that there are people who still don't understand who and what we are. So never hurts. The problem is just getting enough people to man it all day. I don't think you want to do that all day, do you, Miss Barlow? Yeah.
She's going to be out there partying.
Yeah.
And it's an alcohol-free event.
Oh, she just said,
Oh, no, who needs alcohol?
Yeah.
thank you very much.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, now I'll get down to our CLG. How are we doing?
So I would like to review for our newest member what we have done so far. So we went through the whole process to get ready to submit an application to become a certified local government. We adopted the ordinance, we created the board, got the application ready, submitted all the correct paperwork. It went through the Department of State Historic Preservation Office. They pretty much gave it a green light. As soon as they got it, it was like, this is great. They passed it on to the National Park Service, because the National Park Service is the one who actually makes the government a certified local government. They have the last say, the final say. So we waited a while. A couple of months went by in the summertime and didn't hear anything from the National Park Service. So we were kind of wondering what was going on. So I called my liaison at the State Historic Preservation Office, and he followed up and said he would try and find out something. Well, it wasn't long after that that we got notice that there was a problem with the ordinance. And actually, there were several things that they pointed out that we had to do, but that was all easily done, no problems. The section in the ordinance that they said was problematic is the one that talks about a historic district. Now, to give you a little background, this becoming a certified local government, the city has been trying to do this for years. I mean, going back to the 1970s. The one thing that was always a stumbling block was the fact that everybody wanted to keep this voluntary. We didn't want to push this on anyone. It has to be a voluntary program. We promised the citizens, we assured the citizens that we would, make sure it was voluntary. It was only if you wanted to come in, then that would be great. We established the framework. Eventually, we would have, properties that wanted the protection. So the National Park Service pointed to this section of our ordinance that I'll read you. It talks about proposing a historic district. It says, the consent of all property owners of each property proposed for designation hereunder shall be required prior to any action by the board on a nomination for historic property designation, and the written consent of all property owners within a proposed historic district shall be required prior to any action by the board. So if you're proposing a historic district, everybody in the proposed historic district must consent to their property being in the district. Which, it wasn't really a problem with Mediterranean revivals, because we're not set up so that there's really any district that we could put in place that would encompass the Mediterranean revivals, because they were spread out. It wasn't a big concern, but we just wanted to, put in assurances that it would all be, upon consent of the property owner. Well, that was problematic for the National Park Service, because this is the correspondence I got back from the National Park Service through the Historic Preservation Office. It says, at this time, we cannot provide our concurrence because the current version of Temple Terrace Ordinance contains a local designation process for historic districts that requires 100% owner consent as a prerequisite for designation consideration. This is incompatible with the purpose of the local preservation program and does not allow for adequate public participation in the preservation program as the National Historic Preservation Act requires. One person in a neighborhood could preclude everyone else from participating in the decision-making process about potential local designation. So what they were saying was, it's got to be, you have to go by majority. You can't have 100%. Because that just goes against what they think the National Historic Preservation Act requires. This became problematic because of the assurances we gave our residents that this would not be required. So, like I said, even though we don't really have a historic district for Mediterranean revival, we still can't have it in the ordinance because it would cause concern. I did some review, and I found other ordinances from certified local governments that sort of address this problem without requiring the 100%. So the one that I pointed to, and this I sent all of this to my liaison at the state office, who in turn sent it through the National Park Service for their opinion on this. So the City of Dunedin's ordinance, which was adopted in 2019, and Dunedin is a certified local government, states the following: a decision to approve the designation over an owner objection shall be by a supermajority vote. Modification of the boundaries of a proposed historic district is not a reversal of council recommendation so long as a substantial portion of the recommended area is approved. That, hand in hand with another certified local government, had this in their ordinance: if property owners along a particular street are opposed to the creation of a historic district, then that information is taken into consideration by the Historic Preservation Office, and the City Council. Each body prior to the public hearing by the City Council may recommend boundary changes to a proposed district. The overriding consideration is whether the boundary change will negatively affect the character and viability of the proposed district. An individual property owner may not opt out of the district. Rather, he or she may formally object to its creation, which may cause the commission and our council to propose a boundary change. So in this way, we can work around those property owners that do not want to come into the proposed district.
So what would this boundary look like?
That would be up to the
Like
council.
two houses together and,
Yeah, a district does not have to be, I mean, there's no definition to how many how many properties have to be in a district. So you can reroute the boundaries around those properties that do not want to be in the district.
okay.
I mean, it would be a creative solution, but one that could give us the opportunity to not require 100% consent. So it's a workaround.
So did we find out how Plant City managed to?
They put their districts in place. I mean, they designated the district, and then if you were non-contributing, then obviously you were not a part of, you were not in the district because you were non-contributing. But, I mean, that's, and really, that was from the 1990s. So, you know, as people evolve and rules evolve, it's now to the point where that's what they require. That's what the National Park Service requires. So that's what we're stuck with.
Any questions?
Lots, but I
Yeah.
can't formulate them. That's confusing.
So where do you think we are now with this then?
We are waiting
Does
on the
this have to-
National Park Service.
Okay, so this does not have to go back to our council
Yes,
until you have enough
Yes.
to take to them,
correct.
okay? And so we're just waiting.
Yes.
We do a lot of that on this board, unfortunately, yeah.
Now, is there not a concentration of houses and they're going to be part of the district, other just that scattered houses? Is the district supposed to be for the 20s houses or the 50s houses?
Right now, we're working on the 1920s, but as properties get older and time goes by, we'll then work up to the mid-century moderns, which, of course, are, perhaps they are more likely to be in a district
Right.
than a Mediterranean revival.
Is there a feel of how the residents feel I mean, is there some sort of idea of the neighbors? Are there people that oppose this? Do you have any background?
Very much so,
There are people that oppose this.
yes.
Have they given reasons for that?
They don't want us to have control over their property, so they say. It's a property rights kind of thing.
Even though these are the houses from the 1920s?
Yes. Yes, and as Marissa will tell you in a little while, we have not yet we don't have even one property that's wanted to come into the program.
They could all be demolished.
Yes, and the ordinance doesn't prevent that. The ordinance puts a 3-month hold on the demolition of a property that's in the program.
Yeah, it's the same in other cities. I mean, the historic district doesn't prevent demolition, it just slows things down and finds alternatives. Yeah, and there is a house right now I just found out before the meeting that is facing probably a wrecking ball, also a house from the 1920s. So where does that leave us then?
We're working on it too, because once you come into the program, it runs with the land. You do not opt out. So we have to start small and develop the framework. Once, like I said, once a house is in the program, it is in. That's it. No going out. So when the property transfers, that property stays in the program. So eventually you develop a program of protection for your.
Have we educated people as to what
We
would
have
be the
tried.
benefits?
We have tried.
We have
tried.
And
Yes.
no reception?
No, I can't say that. There are those that are in favor, definitely. Probably more in favor than those who are against. But we're very slow to get off the ground.
Thank you.
Right, and even though some of those who are in favor of it believe that it does totally protect them from ever being demolished. And, you know, I don't answer questions, but I know that's not the case. So, all right, so we're in a waiting situation.
And we can all think positively that they approve this as acceptable, then of course we'll have to amend the ordinance and take it back to council.
So we can't take any applications.
No, we can.
Oh, we
Oh,
can?
yes.
Oh, wonderful.
We
Okay.
we still have a program in place. We're just not a certified local government.
Okay, good. That's good to know. All right. I was concerned that that was what that meant. All right. Okay. Any other questions? I agree with you, Lynn. I mean, there's a lot of things running through my head. I'm like, I don't know if I want to say that out loud.
Not yet.
Madam Chairperson, could we maybe, when we celebrate the day of the celebrations of the centennial, if we participate and have some table or whatever, have some sort of flyers or information on what a historic
Oh, absolutely.
district is, and maybe, promote it, market it, and see if that persuades some people. Perhaps they have an erroneous impression of what it is or what they will be getting into, and make them see the value of this.
We did considerable, when we were working towards this ordinance, we did considerable public outreach. We had several public meetings. We sent invitations to all the owners of the 1920s properties.
Mm-hmm.
We put it on social media. We had videos made. We had flyers set up around town. We had flyers at events, outlining what the program was. We really did do extensive outreach. But as you suggest, there's no reason to stop. We should just keep going.
Do you find that it made a difference?
I do.
It's
Thank
just
you.
small steps.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Okay.
Do you have anything to add, Marissa?
Good evening. So Jeannie pretty much covered everything I was going to say. We have had meetings with some residents about the program, but like Jeannie said, we just have not had any applications yet. So we are still communicating with residents and informing them about the program. We're just waiting on that first application. We knew this process was going to take a little bit of time to get off the ground, but again, we're just waiting on that first application.
When they come in, are they coming in saying, we don't know anything, tell us everything, or are they pretty much aware of what they want to happen?
It depends on who I'm speaking with. Some people don't know anything about the program, some know a little bit and just want some clarification. It just depends on who I'm speaking with.
Well, and what do we have, how many do we have left? 20,
I think 40.
Yeah.
40? Okay, that's more than I thought we had, okay,
Yeah, but we've lost about 40% of our historic resources.
yeah.
So,
Plus the big kahuna, which we won't talk about. Okay, all right. Are you going to talk to us about the artifact collection policy?
no, that's Jeannie's.
Jeannie,
Although her and I were both in the meeting today.
in that case, all right. So this would, you have this before us?
Yes,
Correct?
this was
Yes.
actually the mayor's idea. Put something like this together to have a policy in place. So I've been working on this for a little while. It's been reviewed by the city manager. He's okay with it. It's just a basic policy. It designates a city curator who serves as the custodian of the items. The curator oversees the collection of the artifacts and whatnot. It says exactly what kind of artifacts will be considered. We have internal collections and external collection procedures. Once the city accepts an artifact, it becomes the city's property. And we'll have a donation agreement form to go with the artifact. We have a database that we're going to need to set up to track the artifacts, the when, how, and from who the artifact was required, and details. And then there's a procedure to deaccession the artifact. And that's pretty much it. It's just, basic policy, but, welcome to comment. So what we need to do, we're having trouble locating space, but we will not stop until we get something. I've talked to the city manager. He said it's fine with him to use outside the city to store the artifacts, but we need to know what is out there. We don't have any way of knowing who has what. So we need to do some networking. We need to have names. We need to have locations. We need to know where these artifacts are so that we can start collecting them. Because the city itself has artifacts, but not a lot. So we know that they're out there. We know Grant Rimby had a lot that he passed on. So we would really like to start the collection process. And once we know what we're collecting, we will know what kind of storage facility we will need to store these artifacts. The library has display cases, so on the short term, once we get the artifacts in a location, then we can put them in the library in display cases and rotate them out. That's on the short term. On the long term, we would like to eventually find a place, a room that in a city building that we can use to have some place where the public can access, and that we can actually have a museum of sorts, which would be pretty cool considering, this is 100 years now, and we should start thinking about preserving, whatever artifacts we can going forward. So what I would like you to do, if you don't mind, is to kind of network, to find out, names and places, and give that information to Marissa or me, and so we can investigate, how we can go about acquiring these artifacts.
Well, I was just at a meeting, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I just wanted you to know their Grant had, I don't know, them being called artifacts, but there are some things that Grant had that Preservation Society has a hold of. But most of what he had was actually paperwork. There's not a big collection of anything that you can touch. So, when you guys say artifacts, I don't know what you're really
Marissa, do you want?
trying to
I mean,
claim.
So even when it comes to paperwork, that is still something that.
Oh, sure,
that we would
that's
like
very
to have.
important, of
Yeah,
course.
Exactly, especially because if it's anything that has been researched upon,
Mm-hmm.
that will help us in the future to do reports, because once houses are starting to be designated, I will have to complete a designation report to give to the state. So any kind of paperwork or anything like that,
Mm-hmm.
pictures, will be helpful for this program.
Well, that can be done. I just don't want, I mean, a lot of people think that we have artifacts. We don't have
We
artifacts.
will take your paperwork too.
We had
But
some.
anything
Well, we
coming
have,
out
I
of
mean,
these old homes.
artifacts.
Yeah.
and they
Yeah, anything that's
And
coming
like
from.
Sutton Hall.
A good example, I know there's another house,
Sleepy Hollow.
no, there's a house building here in Temple Terrace. It's commercial, but they have a document that's signed by Maud Fowler.
Oh, that would be lovely.
That would be lovely to have. I think they also have original plans for their house.
Nice.
So those are the things that we'd also like to collect as well.
I was just at a meeting where a speaker shared with us that as the hurricane was approaching, this was not this one, the one that we all should have been thinking about, back in '04, and it looked like, I think it was Hurricane Charlie, was headed for us. And so he had a huge collection of political cartoons. He lives in Temple Terrace, and he also had been a professor at USF. And so he went to the library and said, hey, can I just bring my stuff to you because I'm afraid it's going to get blown away in the storm. And you know how it is, once you do that, then they started talking about, well, why don't you just leave it here and it's quite a collection. And so I have a feeling that if we start telling people, hey, look what we found, or look what we have. I know that there's an estate sale coming up, and there are quite a few pieces of furniture in that house that were original to the home. And once people know that, they may be saying the same thing. Oh my goodness, I've been worrying about this X for a long time. And if I can give it to the city, I don't have to worry about it anymore. And maybe my kids don't want it, or they're going to throw it away, or whatever, photographs and things like that.
They just have it in an album and they pass on.
Yeah. So it's, we'll put it in that booth that we're having. So you want us to actually start talking to people, especially if we know that they have something, like you say, photographs are probably the most important.
Photographs, documents, physical objects.
Well, I know that the joke used to be that on the cleanup week, we would all drive around and pick up stuff on the street that people had put out, and we found quite a few pieces that belonged to the country club when it was the hunting lodge, as well as, well, I know Grant did. He was probably the gleaner with the most pickups, but also from the University of Tampa. So let's have another pickup week and see if people just put their stuff out there. I don't know. But anyway, I think this is something that will happen. I really do. Mayor Ross, do you have something to add?
If you'll indulge me just for a moment.
I do.
Thank you, Board. So I do want to put this in a little context, and as Jeannie said, this was kind of my suggestion to do. I'd just like you to remember that this is the city council that finally got this historic preservation they've been trying to do this since 1970, and they've got to the same point every time and failed. And most of it involved the volunteer. Once you're in, but you have to opt in. This council, well, with one exception, we have a new council member, but other than that, this council was the one that got it over the finish line after 50 years. And I'm very proud of that. And the irony is that it's the historic district language that is kind of hanging us up right now, and we don't have a historic district. So that's kind of the irony. But someday we may, because there's portions of our city that were developed at the same time, like south of Bullard, you know, the area we call the peninsula, that's all built at the same time.
Yep.
And so someday we could. The artifacts, there's more out there than people realize because it's in people's homes. I mean, it's in their personal belongings, and you know, if somebody has something, they may or may not even know what they have. And it occurs to me that, you know, the council has talked several times of trying to build a museum of sorts, either make it part of an existing building or a standalone building. But we don't have any way to assure the public that we're going to take care of the stuff they give us.
Right.
And, you know, 20 years ago, or, well, truthfully, less than that, man, you give your box of 100-year-old china that you've been passed down in your family, and you give it to somebody at the city, well, how do you know that that's going to remain property of the city and not just become property of whoever, whatever employee you gave it to and disappear? And I'm sure that's happened over the years. I mean, I don't know for sure, but it's had to have. And so in order to go to people and be able to say respectively, we're going to catalog your stuff and it's going to become government property, it's going to become property of the public, and we're going to archive it and we're going to catalog it and we're going to display it in some cases, and we're going to take care of this in a professional manner. If you give stuff to the Tampa History Museum, you're assured that it's going to remain in the Tampa History Museum. But we don't have that. And there's no reason that we can't. We're one policy away from being able to assure the public that this is going to be done. It'll be enshrined in city rules and city ordinances, city codes. There's no difference between us and USF Special Collections except you trust that they're going to do what they say. Well, you can trust that we're going to do what we say too if we do it in the right way. And so that's what we're trying to do. And so the public here in Temple Terrace, there's a lot of stuff people don't realize, but when you start putting it all together, we have a collection. A lot of our photographs and old newspapers and so forth are in the custody of USF Special Collections, which is great. Most of it's been digitized, it's searchable, you can read it on your computer, so it's great. There's no reason to change any of that. But we would like to be able to go to the public with credibility and provide assurance that we're going to store your stuff, we're going to take care of it, we're going to have a chain of custody like we do for police evidence, and it's going to be, well, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah,
I mean,
no,
if
but
you
that's
need
right.
you know, it's the same thing. There's a chain of custody. So you want to know where where's this glass bowl that my aunt gave to you? Well, it's right here. And you can see it if you care to see it. It's public property. So that's what we're trying to do here. And so the space
Where
issue-
are you? How far along are you?
Oh, we're pretty good. I mean, I haven't read the draft. I just got it when you got it. And, you know, I'm sure we'll talk about it. And the city manager and I have been talking for some time about space in this building, and we'll figure this out. We do have space coming up here and there. So we will figure this out. It doesn't necessarily have to be in this building. It could be anywhere secure, really. Questions have been asked in this process, you know, would people still be able to access it if they're still working? You know, I'd be willing to donate this box of photographs, but I'm still like to be able to come and look at them too. I'm sure we could figure something out. I mean, there's going to have to be some oversight. I mean, we're not going to just, here's the room, you know, now you got access to everybody's box of photographs, right? But we'll have to maintain some controls in order to have credibility that your stuff is safe. But yeah, I mean, the short answer to that is yes. The idea is to make it available to the public, not to restrict it. So we would encourage people to and also know there's people that, truthfully, I don't want to betray any confidence here, but I know there are people whose family would love them to give some stuff away because they don't want to. They're like, oh my gosh, I wish they'd give it away. And this is a place to give it where there's some credibility.
May motivate people.
Yeah, and I'd love to get to the point where we have so much stuff, it's like, okay, we need to display it. We're going to have to build a wing on a building. We're going to have to build, I mean, that'd be a great problem to have. And I know Councilmember Fernandez has brought the historic museum idea up several times. I think Councilmember Chambers has brought it up a few times. I mean, it's come up. It's just that the timing, you have to have stuff before you build a museum. You don't build a museum and then wish you had stuff, right? It's kind of, you don't build a road to nowhere. You have to have a reason to build the road, right? And so, anyway, I don't want to belabor your meeting, but I did want to give you some context. Your city council is very preservation-minded. I hope you know that. This is the council that established the Centennial Committee. It's the council that, well, you were on it when we established the Centennial Committee. We got the historic preservation over the finish line, and we're going to solve this problem with the districts. Don't let that bother you. We're going to fix that. We'll figure it out. If I got to go to Washington, we'll figure this out. And we'll get through it. I have confidence in that. So don't let that don't take your eye off the ball. What you're doing is right on the mark. We will get properties involved. The first one's always going to be the challenge. Somebody's got to blink, right? And once that person does, then somebody else will fall in. Once they realize, hey, they went into the program and they just redid their kitchen and they didn't have any problem at all. And so, it'll happen. And so, thank you, and thank you for all the work that you do in addition to your regular duties. This is, believe it or not what they normally do. They have other jobs too, and so thank you.
So I'm hearing what you're saying. This is on its road to being official policy? Okay. So you're turning us loose to talk to people about this?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right, we've all been given our marching orders here. I'm thinking of people right now who I know. Thank you very much. Thank you. All that was really interesting. So, review of the program to date? I think we've done that. I know. Just want to make sure. Okay. Possible agenda items and a next meeting. What do you recommend? And do you have any items that you would like for them to bring to us or research to us? Go ahead, Juan Carlos.
So I don't know if it's something for the next agenda or I'll mention it here. But I did have a question before for Ms. Robinson, and that is on architectural salvage, for example. Would that be considered part of the items to be collected? Which, by the way, I think what the mayor and the city council have done is terrific at, and you guys also, at developing a collection policy, because without that, preservation just stays in theory and not in concrete terms. So it is fantastic that we're getting that, and a place where these things can be exhibited. But in case, for example, these houses that cannot be protected are torn down, or they're big elements, architectural elements that could be taken before demolition, and Sutton Hall, again, as Councilmember Lynn and the chairperson have mentioned, is what I want to get at in a moment. Is that included in your plans, architectural salvage, or we're just at the stage where it's small things because we don't have the room?
I think right now, as far as the museum policy goes, I think we're more on the small things, again, just because of space. There is provisions in the historic preservation ordinance that if they apply for demolition, that part of the 3-month hold is to do architectural salvage. But again, they would have to be designated before we could pursue the salvage.
See, because what happens sometimes is the buildings get demolished, and then people that do that for a living, that have shops, go and they pick the stuff, either they buy it or they take it from the debris, and then they sell it. And then we would be losing out on this. So I'm just wondering if there's any way, and I don't know if Mr. Moody here, who's a contractor and preservationist, has any ideas on that, but we would seem to be at a disadvantage.
Right, so I think with houses now, or any building now, like if there were stained glass windows, we would be able to house that. But if if a building was being demolished and we wanted to collect all the hardwood floors and pull them out, that's something that we probably wouldn't have space for.
We could figure it out.
Okay.
These would need to be things that could be on display.
Yeah.
Right, but,
Practically.
well, certainly worth a shot.
But that does bring up an interesting point. My brother lives in a neighborhood in Washington DC where the homeowners association established their own historic board, okay? And if you are going to remodel your kitchen or your bathroom or whatever, you let people know, hey, I'm going to have all this green tile that I don't want anymore. And I'm not going to throw it out, but it's yours for, and I don't know whether it's to buy or give away or whatever, but you basically can't throw it out. You have to offer it to the other 22 homes that are in this group. And my brother was able to salvage all the metal cabinets that you then get powder coated and the whole thing for his new kitchen, okay? So is that, I mean, that's a whole other ball game
That's a
here.
whole other, yeah.
But maybe somebody should start that business, like,
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah, if we had the land space, we might be able to.
yeah, yeah.
Well, that was one of the problems that they had with the casino, when the casino was taken down from Florida College. I mean, we were in there and we saw things, but they didn't let us specifically take anything, and then never came back and said to us, okay, you can, is there anything here that you want? Or could you use? They just, all of a sudden it was gone.
Well, is there anybody we can talk to before Sutton Hall comes down? I'm not opposed to begging.
Well, we did a lot of begging.
I was gonna say.
I don't think anything you're talking about here can't be done. Obviously, there are issues of storage. I understand there's a big staircase in there, and I don't know where in the world we would put a big staircase. But if there are architectural features from the building that could be taken down and preserved or repurposed.
A fireplace mantle.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
sense that, I mean, I don't want to speak for Dr. Weaver at Florida College, but we have a pretty good relationship, and I don't think they're going to repurpose this stuff. And although we have had some discussions about them repurposing some of it back into the new building. And I would think that would be preferable to us. pulling pieces,
Certainly, if they
I
can
mean-
do that, but if they're gonna pitch it, we wanna
Yeah, I don't,
get in
I mean,
there.
I don't think that would be a problem, just knowing Dr. Weaver and the staff over there. I can't imagine that would be an issue. I'd be happy to talk to him about that.
If you could, that'd be fabulous.
I don't know.
If you have a relationship with them,
Yeah.
then that's
we
great,
do.
'cause, yeah.
And I will tell you right now, the status of things is, I'm hoping that they will design the replacement building in such a way that at least a portion of the building, maybe the lobby or something, reflects the old and can reuse some of the features from the old, even though it's not the same building. At least if you walked in, you would walk into a lobby that's reminiscent and
Have a
can
feel.
contain some of the original features. I mean, that's what I've talked to him about. Now, whether they'll do that or not, I don't know. But I can certainly ask him if that doesn't work out, if there are particular things in the building that, fireplace manholes or maybe pieces of the banister or something, I don't know what there is. But I'm sure that, like I said, I don't want to speak for him, but
Of course.
I would be happy to facilitate that talk.
It is a different administration from the last building that went down where
Oh,
there
good.
so there is a ray of hope, apparently, because last time, I know that Letha and Grant and several others really tried hard to get in there to take, I mean, let's face it, when Publix went down, we chiseled tile off of the wall,
I
okay?
have tile at home.
And made all kinds of things out of the little bits and pieces because you couldn't get it off the concrete wall. But they I guess we own the building, that's why we let people go in there and do that.
Yeah.
But, I mean, there's obviously an interest in the tile that will be on that floor, and
Oh, yeah.
it just,
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, I
everything.
would be happy to talk to him about that. Now, I haven't been in there, and I don't know exactly, if we start showing up and we're gonna dismantle this thing ourselves and, I don't know that that's gonna fly, but,
Right.
No, but you've got a contractor in the room.
yeah. Yeah, but I mean, they're gonna be concerned about their liability and so, I mean, we're gonna
Of
have to.
course, you want
have some-
somebody licensed and insured.
But I'll be happy to talk to them about that.
We'd also like to know if they get somebody in there. I mean, if we could go in there before they demolish it as maybe part of the centennial,
well, it's.
if that's
So
even
mainly
possible.
because, don't they have a mold problem?
I don't know.
Different building.
Yeah, so, no, you're,
I'll sign a waiver.
as a member of the Centennial Committee, I'm gonna tell you right now, if somebody else wants to do that, but it won't come under the Centennial.
No, okay.
Yeah, we are working with them to,
Ever hopeful here.
some digital and LiDAR preservation of the building to get in there, and so they are amenable to that. I've talked to them many times about that. So, it's not the same as salvaging the building, I understand that, but, at least we'll have some detailed photographs, some LiDAR measurements, and be able to recreate digitally, we could recreate an exact replica. It's not the same.
No, but that's cool.
It's better than it's just gone one day.
So going forward, since we're talking about a specific institution, are there other buildings, I'm gonna look at you, Letha, because I think of you as our resident carekeeper of this information, and you may know the answer to. Are there specific buildings left on that property that we need to worry about?
I've been told this was the last one, I don't know.
As far as the original 1920s buildings, no, this would be the last one.
So that means that Woodmont is the last building standing?
No, there's the domed church. That was the
Yes,
development
okay,
office.
okay.
But I was talking about as far as
As far as on that property?
on that property.
Right, but of the
And
original?
they do have the mid-century modern theater auditorium. But for the 1920 buildings, that will be it.
Okay, so that's it for that
That's it.
institution. But then the other two buildings are the last two?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, okay.
And Woodmont, of course, isn't from the 1920s. That was Bertha Palmer's, so that goes back to 1911,
No, it's actually 1923,
1923?
yeah. But it was not a school,
Yeah.
not a clubhouse. I mean, it's the ultimate recycled building in the city. If we talk about recycling, we just use the word Woodmont, because that's, yeah, it's been everything. Rec center, school. Yeah. Okay, that's what I wanted to know. If there was anything else, okay.
Madam Chairperson,
Yes, yes.
if I may. I think that the mayor and Ms. Robinson have been really involved and invested in trying to do what's best, regarding Sutton Hall, while working with the fact that it's a private building. I think the apprehension and the uncertainty that we are having, or anxiety, I think, is because it's one of the last buildings that are really significant to our community. And what I'm going to say, I've said it before here in public, so it's nothing new. Unfortunately, Dr. Weaver left before I spoke. I think it would be of benefit if we had a hearing where he and his architects presented exactly what they're going to do. There was a lot of uncertainty about what the goal was, and given the fact that the track record of that institution taking care of historical properties has been so poor, I have no confidence in that what we're going to see there is going to be a good neighbor policy from that building towards us that will benefit not only the school but the community. I'm going to plug a few things here, if I may. I started a page called Save Sutton Hall on Facebook, where I'm putting a lot of historical photos and new photos that I've taken, and People can leave comments, so I can pass this so you can see what it is. I don't know if any of these things will do anything, but at this point, unless that board and Dr. Weaver meet with the mayor, with the city council members, with us, and are willing to engage in a conversation about how important this building is for us, I think public opposition will be the last recourse. And I submitted the building to the Florida Trust for Historic Preservation in Tallahassee. They have something called Florida's 11 to Save, and that is the most endangered 11 properties in the state each year. And so I submitted Sutton Hall for 2025. Here you can see the ones for 2024. It only takes a few minutes to fill out a page with the information regarding Sutton Hall and its historic significance. So I invite people to go there and nominate the building. But I think we need to do as much as we can to prevent this from happening. Whether it's a reconstruction, that would be great. But my fear is that we're going to have just an empty lot there. And I don't see so far anything from the school that gives me hope and certainty. So if that's something that we can retake and discuss again in the next meeting, I'll be happy to do that in more detail. Some other minor things that I wanted to point out besides Sutton Hill. I don't know who's in charge, but in our website, the templeterrace.gov website, when we go to the page that says History Overview, and perhaps this is, somebody's going to work at it, but I've been checking this for months and it stayed the same. There's a page that, after you go to History Overview, it says, sorry, the file you have, it's empty. So there's nothing there, no photo. So I don't know if it's a glitch or it's just,
Is this on our website?
yes. And it happens in this page, and it happens in the history map. When you go to the history map of Temple Terrace, it's absent. It's missing. And so I think for whatever the reason, we should get this going for the centennial.
We recently had a redesign of the website, and some things were lost. That could have been the reason, but we'll check on that.
Okay. And finally, one more thing, if I may. I reached out to the managing editor of the Tampa Beacon about writing an opinion column on the importance of Sutton Hall, since they had on the front cover, historic hall to be raised by college, pretty much giving it as a fact. I never heard back from the managing editor. So if anybody here has a connection to that paper and can write a column, I think the more that our community knows about this, the better the chance we have of making our case.
I appreciate your trying, but I mean, the mayor can tell you, when they presented this to us, they did not present it as we want you, can we do this? It was presented as, we thought you might want to know this is what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Because we have, other than, you're right, public opinion should sway them, but I even asked if they could delay it until 26 so that it wouldn't go down in the middle of the centennial. And they're like, our hands are tied, we already have a contract. So, and that was just me asking as me, not as anybody in particular. Yes.
Is there another meeting planned? Because I thought that at the actual council meeting, there was a date, or there was
I don't
talk
know.
of
I don't believe there's another meeting.
some sort of hearing or something
I'm
like.
seeing a no from the mayor, so,
Okay.
no.
Okay.
I agree with you. We need to let them know that we're not happy about it, but it's one of those things you just like, it's a done deal. And I had people asking to look at the original title exchange between the city, and even in that, there's nothing in the transfer of the property that says if this happens, it comes back to the city. There's no safety net built in. And that was in what, 1940 something? Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, I don't rarely sound like a defeated person, but I feel defeated by this one.
I wonder, and I don't know, maybe Mr. Mueller as our lawyer can comment on this. The idea of maybe a public-private partnership with the school by which we have some say. And perhaps this would go back to, yeah, well, we can do whatever we want with the building. But the issue is they're not isolated in living in a desert. They're part of a community, and they're not just holding on to a closet. They're holding on to one of the foundational buildings of the community. And
Iconic.
the presentation that I saw here was just, for me, it left a lot to be desired. And I think we, as residents of Temple Terrace, deserve better from that school.
Well, as we know, the public does tend to sway when it's the vote of council that we're swaying. But in this case, we're not talking to someone that they have made up their minds. I don't think you should give up, okay?
won't.
But I'm just saying, we don't have something that says, well, if you don't do this, or if you do this, we're gonna do this, because we have empty guns. Yeah.
Any ideas, Mr. Mueller, on this subject?
You ready?
Not in this particular instance.
Well, we could talk about this all night long, because these are things that are our opinions and what have you. So is there any other business to come before, other than setting up a date? Yes, sir.
I can, for the new members and even for the existing members, one of your duties on the Historic Preservation Board is to possibly do variances if someone wants to do an addition or something that's going to affect maybe the setbacks. And so I'm betting you have not gotten we have a video that gives you a little, teaches you a little bit about variances. So I'll get that to you.
Yeah.
And I thought maybe, you guys might want to see it again. The dulcet tones of that narrator is really pleasant.
Oh, it was lovely.
Yeah.
It was lovely. I thought about it no, I'm kidding.
But if you'd like, Mr. Harless and I can send it to all of you. But
Thank you.
the new members
Sure.
in particular are probably going to want to, we'll definitely want to see that. And I would like to, and I'll get your emails from Mr. Harless, try and set up a time to meet with you at your convenience, just to go over some of the sunshine law stuff and a few of the other things that may impact, especially if you may have some questions. Sunshine law is usually that, public records, new to y'all, so I want to make myself available.
Thank you.
So it'll be at your convenience, but I'll reach out by email to find out when you're available.
Please. Okay, the last thing we need to do before we can adjourn the meeting is decide when the next meeting should be. We typically are going to be called into action when an application comes in. We do not have one before us, as I understand, even in the process at this time. So can I suggest March? Skip February, March. March meeting would allow us time to get ready for the centennial, which is in May. And in the meantime, we can be thinking about some things we'd like to do. You can maybe bring to us the brochures that we already have, if we have to update them or what have you. Does that sound possible to you? Okay. All right, so let's see here. That date would be, tried not to keep my phone on, but I thought I better put it back on so I could do this. What would that be? That'd be the 26th?
Fourth Wednesday.
Or the, correct?
Fourth Wednesday, so
The fourth one of March, the fourth Wednesday, that's the 26th. Okay, at 5 PM? Is 5 PM good still for everybody? Good for staff? Good for staff? Okay. All right, well then let's set the next meeting as March 26th. That will be right after we have Art en Blanc, and we'll all be, still talking about how beautiful that was on the 22nd. Okay. Hearing no other calls for action, I'll call this meeting adjourned.
Thank you.